Happy Sunday, everybody. This is Joe from the Middle Ground. Mike, hope catches everybody doing well. Some crazy stuff has been developing over the Epstein files. Cash Patel and Dan Bonino. Looks like it's going to be a pretty big thing. I normally don't do Sunday news quote unquote posts, right? But I didn't get to do one yesterday. So apparently, there's a war and it's surrounding Pam Bondi, at the center, two figures that are pretty big Trump, like hardcore, they're hardcore MAGA. Attorney General Pam Bondi and FBI Director Cash Patel. They said it was going to be a bombshell when it was released on January 7th. It pretty much was a dud. They released a joint memo saying there was no client list. And pretty much, I think a lot of people had said that. It was not a good look. I don't think either. So, it was pretty much the whole base was promised this, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like what the memo created, an information vacuum, right? So everybody's kind of like, whoa, what's going on? It allowed people to be, people are speculating, saying that Patel might step aside and Dan Bonino over it, because apparently there was a heated exchange between Dan and Attorney General Pam Bondi. And they just said it got like really bad, like really intense. I haven't seen if there was any screaming or anything like that, but they said it was a pretty much a very intense situation, and Dan called off the next day. Um, some people tried to call it a theory, but there's been a lot of confirmation to it. I mean, even Fox News has shared about it. I mean, it's not dedicated confirmation, right? But there's a lot of credible sources talking about it. So this is kind of crazy, and it's a deep state twist. They're talking about, a lot of people always said that, the DOJ and the FBI were unified on this. Apparently they are, is what some people are saying. They're talking about, there's a crisis of trust now inside the administration over this. I know Trump backed Pam Bondi, which naturally he's going to do. Why would a deep state crusader suddenly defend a memo that seemed to protect the powerful? Right? Like why? Why would Cash Patel do that? Like I said, I think that's part of why they're saying Dan Bonino is ready to resign. I'm sure more is going to come out in the next couple of days. We let's just stay on top of it. Tuesday's quick news are probably revolve a little around this, and maybe obviously some other items. So if you have anything, comment below, like, share, subscribe to the channel. The more we can do this stuff. Talk to everybody later.